Like most of you watching this, Digimon Our War Game is a film I first experienced through the bizarre, bastardized American localization known as Digimon the Movie. The less we linger on that, the better, so if you didn't know, that was a human centipede of a release which combined the short prologue film from the original television series Digimon Adventure with Our War Game, which was set after that series, along with a totally unrelated film originally released in Japan in 2 parts and set during the second television series Digimon Adventure 02. All the best and most memorable stuff from that retrofitted compilation was from Our War Game, though I do think the films making up the other 2/3 have merits on their own. At a brisk 40-minute runtime, Our War Game, also known as Children's War Game according to the film's title card, provides a thrilling yet quirky battle deciding the fate of the entire planet, told from the narrow and grounded perspective of a few kids trying to save the world from their computers and antiquated turn-of-the-century dial-up internet connections. One day, without any justification, an egg appears online, hatching a mischievous virus named Diablomon, who quickly grows into something far more malicious. First content with just eating up nondescript code, he eventually moves on to causing chaos, preying on our growing reliance on a digital infrastructure to run our world. Our heroes are primarily Taichi and Izzy, and their attempts to stop this virus end up catching its interest, making them the focus of its torment. Ultimately, it hacks into the US government, and uses their systems to launch a nuclear-capable LGM-118 Peacekeeper intercontinental ballistic missile against Japan, with the target being Tokyo Bay, right outside of Taichi's apartment. This is a MIRV, meaning its single missile body would break apart and release up to 10 re-entry vehicles, each with its own W-87 thermonuclear warhead, which could be independently guided to its own coordinate. Each one of these 10 warheads is 20 times as powerful as Little Boy, which devastated Hiroshima during World War II, and around 14 times as powerful as Fat Man, which was dropped on Nagasaki, with both collectively killing hundreds of thousands of Japanese citizens. I say all of this to put into perspective how real of a threat this is, with historical context for Japanese society. Just one of these ICBMs could spell annihilation for the country, since 10 warheads could mean 10 cities, each being struck with the power of 20 Little Boys. And nothing would stop this virus from launching more, since the US had 50 of these Peacekeeper ICBMs in their inventory at this time. Not to mention the stockpile of over 8,000 nuclear weapons the US had at this point, or the fact that it could move on to any of the other nuclear-armed superpowers that existed by the year 2000. From the UK, China, France, and Russia's stockpile of over 21,000 nuclear weapons. And all this by a virus with no real origin or motivation at all. Just an anomaly spawned from the primordial soup of the early internet. It doesn't operate with a sense of morality or comprehend the gravity of its actions. It can't be reasoned with, simply acting as a technological force of nature, and just repeatedly saying hello over emails and phone calls directly to our heroes. These stakes are insane for a few kids to handle, with the clock ticking before the missile impacts. But to all of the adults around them, this is all just a series of small peculiarities, like phone lines going down or grocery prices not scanning correctly. Of course, this is all handled with a lighthearted comedic tone, but it forms an interesting contrast since cutaways to this ICBM headed to Japan are pretty haunting, portrayed with a surprising level of realism with its dreary color scheme distorted by heat waves against the bright blue sky. The idea that it's this young generation that needs to use this burgeoning field of technology to stop a nuclear weapon, a symbol of destruction and paranoia created by previous generations, conveys a great message about a potentially brighter future. Concepts like this really take the premise of Digimon out of the fantasy setting of the television series and apply it to our reality, with the inside of our internet appearing much more sterile yet jumbled up with nonsense imagery, like how you'd expect the late 90s to early 2000s internet to appear if it had to be personified in a 3D environment. The Digimon actually travel through wires to make it to different locations, and it's all enabled through realistic technology of the time, which they put a great deal of effort into conveying authentically. Of course, this was all contemporary for the time, but watching it almost 3 decades later, you can't help but see a retro appeal to it. For example, the painstaking detail put into recreating every aspect of the operating systems the characters need to navigate on their end of the conflict, and the way their fingers distort the image when they touch the screen of their CRT monitor, which is also shown to be appropriately hefty when Izzy needs to lift it. There's all this clutter on the desk of Taichi's family computer, including stacks of CD cases and junk off to the side. It gives you the impression that this is a very standard setup for a family like this living in an apartment complex, making it all the more remarkable that this setup would need to be used to save the world. They use several fallback systems in creative ways to stay in the fight. Diablomon knocks out Japan's telephone services, and as a result, their connection to the internet goes down too. Izzy ends up getting around this by going out and purchasing a satellite phone to connect directly to an overseas access point and link it to their computer. The government switches to an emergency voicemail system, so in order to get in contact with their friends, they need to play phone tag, taking turns sending each other small voice messages since they can't communicate directly. Since this just spontaneously happened one day, some of our heroes are busy doing other things in their life and can't be contacted to let them know what's happening. For example, Joe is struggling to take his college entrance exams and Mimi is on vacation in Hawaii. It's so creative how they use that vacation to show the missile flying westward from the continental US towards Japan. We only catch small vignettes of the other characters, along with other people all around the world watching our heroes try to stop Diablomon, contributing to the global scale of the story. These shots also serve to showcase just how far the internet had penetrated every corner of the globe, even at such an early point in its history. Having Yamato and his little brother Takeru visiting their grandmother in a much more rural part of the country is a fun roadblock, since they need to hunt down an internet connection so they can join the fight, and only end up finding one at a barber shop in town. Other characters from the television series that are sidelined in this film include Taichi's little sister Hikari, who's just trying to survive her judgmental friend's birthday party, and Sora, who spends the entire movie mad at Taichi, waiting for him to apologize for giving her a simple hair clip for her birthday. He actually does try to apologize in an email, but due to Diablomon's havoc, she doesn't receive it. This forms a nice through line in the story, since Hikari walked in and sent the email off after he accidentally added a heart to his signature, but before he was ready, embarrassing him and causing him to stress out about it throughout the film, even though they have bigger problems to deal with. I think it goes without saying that the animation quality and art style for the film is really nice. There's a sort of simple blobbiness to the characters at times, but it never goes too far in that direction, and CGI elements are almost never distracting, and if anything, add to the abstract nature of this version of cyberspace. I will say, the evolution sequences borrowed from the show are one of the few elements that pull me out visually. I like that everything digital is rendered with red line art, and then in the climax when the heroes enter their computers, they're rendered without any outlines. It's just a striking way to differentiate these different types of beings. Action looks great with an excellent sense of weight, though it's usually over pretty quickly, so I don't think that's a major appeal for the film. Diablomon is a really intimidating villain, using its ability to rapidly evolve into different forms to thoroughly outmatch those trying to stop it. He starts off cute and silly, but quickly becomes something much creepier, even attacking in the middle of our heroes' lengthy evolution sequences, negating their transformation. Going through the concept art on the recent Discotek Blu-ray release, I actually noticed art for an unused phase of its evolution, where he looked like a cocoon, which would have come right before the version where he grows legs. Its final form isn't incredibly powerful, but it multiplies itself to the point where it's impossible to find the real one who controls the ticking clock attached to initializing the missile's fuse. I love the idea that all of the supportive messages from people all over the world rooting for them are actually having an adverse effect and limiting their data rate, effectively slowing down their ability to fight. So it's an even more clever twist for them to redirect those messages into Diablomon, stopping him in his tracks and turning everyone's good wishes into the key that defeats him. It's such a well done finale, with the rapid cuts between the countdown timer, the missile, and the culmination of various other subplots established throughout the film, all coming to a head at once. And stabbing the villain straight through the head, shattering the clock at the same time is just brutal. Since the missile's fuse isn't triggered, it ends up falling harmlessly outside of their apartment. Once again, this is all played for laughs as spectators tilt their heads along with the missile as it falls over. But we can only laugh about this because of the massive bullet we just dodged. Since the day is saved and internet connection is restored, we get a really adorable ending where Sora finally gets Taichi's apology email, heart included, and we see her wearing the hair clip in the credits. It's a nice sentiment that really puts into perspective how we tend to blow up our interpersonal problems when they're so small in the grand scheme of things, especially in the context of the film itself compared to the crisis that was just averted, which most characters weren't even aware of. That credit sequence is nice because it gives us one last snapshot and bit of closure for the various characters we only got small glimpses of. All in all, I love this film and think it's almost perfect. In such a short runtime, it's able to pack in so many unique visuals and nuanced concepts, capturing an exciting time in history with a surprising degree of authenticity. It's something that can be enjoyed without much context from the original television series, or any of the sequels that came after it. For a long time, I considered making this video a comparison between Our War Game and Summer Wars, a film made a decade later by the same director, Mamoru Hosoda, which shares many of the same themes and visuals, but really, I just wanted to gush about Digimon more. If you want a beefier experience, I don't think there's anything wrong with watching the other Digimon short film alongside this, and pretending they come together as an hour-long film. It was also done by the same director and meant to lead into the television series, but its visuals flow nicely into the first shot of Our War Game, making them feel directly connected. It's only 20 minutes, showcasing Taichi and Hikari's first experience with a Digimon hatching into our reality. It grows into a giant dinosaur resembling Agumon, but with a more feral personality, and eventually battles against a bird that hatches from the sky. Honestly, this one creeped me out as a kid, since the scenes around the city at night have an eerie and surreal atmosphere. And of course, the final battle seemed extremely tense and larger than life, against the backdrop of these unassuming apartment buildings, especially since none of the characters know what's going on. But wrapping things up with Our War Game itself, I think there's a lot of subtle brilliance to be found in its short runtime. It's an incredibly tight package that comes full circle in a perfect way. It doesn't sweat the small stuff with its setup and immediately gets the ball rolling. It only continues to ramp up the tension until its suspenseful ending, where things are taken down to the wire. Don't miss out on experiencing this story in its original form, if you've only seen it through the lens of the old American localization. And if you haven't seen it since that came out, you're sure to find a new appreciation for it, even if it's just for the throwback technology on display.